Post 1. I never thought I'd be writing one of these, but here I am. My hands are still shaking, and I don't know if I handled myself wrong or if I just finally saw my life for what it really was. I, 29 male, have been with my fiancée Sophie, 27 female, for almost 4 years. We got engaged last year, and I proposed with my late grandmother's ring. That ring means the world to me. My grandmother raised me a lot of the time, since my mom worked long hours, and she always said she wanted me to give it to the one. When she passed, she left it to me, specifically saying it was for my future wife. It's not the fanciest ring, but it's pure sentiment and family history. Sophie cried when I gave it to her, and I thought it was one of those perfect moments you carry for the rest of your life. My family dynamic is complicated. My mom remarried when I was a teenager. My stepdad, Greg, 50s M, came into the picture when I was already outgrowing the whole dad thing, so we never got close. He was polite enough, but distant. Still, my mom loved him, and I always figured that was enough. I've always been the quiet one, working hard, building my career, keeping my head down. Sophie seemed to love that about me. She said I was solid, unlike some of the flaky guys she'd dated before. Up until 3 days ago, I would have told you my life was on track. I've got a good job, a fiancé, plans for a wedding next summer. My mom was thrilled. She told me Sophie was like the daughter she never had. She said Greg approved. I thought I had everyone's blessing. Then Friday happened. Work let out early. A big client meeting got canceled, so instead of staying late, I drove home around 2 p.m. Sophie was supposed to be out running errands, or at least that's what she told me. I thought maybe we could sneak in some time together before dinner. I didn't call or text to say I was coming, just thought it'd be a nice surprise. I unlocked the door, came in quiet. At first, I thought I heard the TV in the bedroom, but the sound wasn't right. It wasn't the TV. It was voices, then laughter, then something else. I don't know how to describe the way my stomach dropped. It wasn't even denial. It was like my body already knew what my brain refused to believe. I opened the bedroom door. Sophie, my fiancée, the woman wearing my grandmother's ring, and Greg, my stepdad, my mother's husband, in my bed. I froze. They froze. For a split second, no one moved. Sophie went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. Greg had the nerve to pull the blanket up like a kid caught doing something naughty. And then I snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked straight across the room and punched Greg in the face. One clean shot. He fell sideways off the bed, cursing, holding his cheek. Sophie screamed at me, calling me insane. All I remember saying, my voice shaking, was, "You tell her, or I will." I meant my mom. Greg spat blood into his hand and muttered something like, "You'll regret this." Sophie scrambled to put on clothes and started yelling about how I was abusive, how I'd just attacked her future stepfather, and how I needed help. I couldn't even hear her properly. It was all muffled in my ears. I left, walked straight out the door, got in my car, and sat there with my hands on the wheel for 10 minutes. My phone buzzed nonstop. Sophie begging me to be rational. Greg telling me I didn't understand. But I understood plenty. I don't know what happens now. I don't know how to tell my mom without destroying her life. But I also can't sit on this. I feel like my entire world has been set on fire. So, Reddit, AITA for punching my stepdad? First comment. Honestly, anyone in your position would have reacted the same. You caught them red-handed. That wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. One punch is nothing compared to what they deserve. Second comment. You need to tell your mom immediately. Greg and Sophie will twist this against you if you don't. Do not give them the chance to spin their own version first. Update 1. I didn't think I'd be back here so soon, but things have blown up faster than I could have imagined. When I walked in on Greg and Sophie in my bed, I was so stunned I could barely think straight. I yelled, I swung at Greg once, and then I told them to get out. Before leaving, I said if they didn't go straight to my mom and tell her what happened, then I would. Honestly, I was still processing. Part of me thought maybe they'd come clean out of guilt. Instead, they went on the offensive. The next day, I decided to go to my mom's house before they could twist the story. I rehearsed it the whole drive over. How to break it gently, how to explain without exploding in anger. I wanted her to hear it from me first, but when I pulled into the driveway, Sophie's car was already there. My stomach dropped. I walked in to find her sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of tea like she was the lady of the house, and Greg right beside her with his arm draped over her chair. My mom was fluttering around them, fussing, handing Sophie tissues. The second she saw me, she snapped. "How dare you show your face here after what you did?" I literally froze. I said, "What are you talking about?" But she cut me off before I could explain. She said Sophie had come to her in tears, telling her I'd been controlling, that I hit her, and that when Greg tried to step in, I lost my temper and punched him. I tried to laugh it off because it sounded insane. "Mom, I caught them in bed together." That's what happened. But she wasn't having it. She pointed at me and said, "Greg already told me everything. He said you've been unstable for months, and when Sophie tried to get help, you snapped." I begged her to let me explain, but she wouldn't even let me sit down. She told me Sophie would be staying with them for her own safety. She said if I cared about my family at all, I'd stop spreading lies and get some help. I've never felt so betrayed in my life. My own mother looked at me with absolute disgust while the man who married her and the woman I thought I'd marry sat there playing the victims. And the worst part is, she believed them instantly. Not a single question for me. No hesitation. Just blind defense of Greg. She told me until I stop slandering her husband, I'm not welcome in her house. And then she twisted the knife further by saying, Sophie deserves someone who will actually take care of her. That Greg was stepping up where I'd failed. I stumbled out of there feeling like I'd fallen into some nightmare. I thought the betrayal was Greg and Sophie. I didn't expect my own mom to slam the door in my face too. Now I don't know what to do. Sophie has my mom's support. Greg has managed to paint me as abusive. I've got nothing but my word, and no one in that house wants to hear it. I've been sitting here wondering if maybe I should have stayed quiet, if maybe punching Greg gave them the perfect weapon to use against me. But what was I supposed to do? Just stand there and shake his hand for destroying my life? So, am I the jerk for punching my stepdad? When now I'm being treated like the monster and my mom has literally taken them in under her roof? First comment, this is devastating. You're not the jerk. You caught them red-handed. Your mom choosing Greg and Sophie over her own son is pure betrayal. Don't doubt yourself. Second comment, they're circling the wagons because they know the truth will sink them. Get everything documented. You may need proof later when they double down on these abuse claims. Thought for 6 seconds. Update 2. I barely slept. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw Greg smirk over Sophie's shoulder, his hands on her like he'd won something. By morning, the group chat with my mom and me had gone silent. She'd renamed it Family months ago after we got engaged, and now it felt like a bad joke. I texted again anyway. Mom, we need to talk. Please, no response. 10 minutes later, I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I ended up walking laps around the block just to burn the panic out of my legs. When I finally went back inside, Sophie's overnight bag was gone. She must have grabbed it when I was in the shower. The closet was still half full of her stuff, like a museum exhibit of a life that evaporated overnight. I stood there stupidly staring at the hook where my grandmother's ring usually sat when she wasn't wearing it, and felt sick all over again. It was gone, too. Around noon, my sister Ava called and asked if I could meet her at a coffee shop near Mom's place. She sounded tight, careful, like she was defusing a bomb. I went. She was already at a corner table, picking apart a croissant bit by bit. Before you say anything, she started, I'm here to listen. I sat, and for a second I almost cried from relief. Then the floodgates opened. I told her everything, from stepping through the front door early with takeout to Greg's man-to-man shrug as he slid off my fiancé. I admitted I'd swung first. Ava's eyes flared at that, but she reached across and squeezed my wrist. "I'm not saying you were wrong," she said. "I'm saying they're going to use that." Then she told me what I'd half expected. Greg and Sophie had gone to Mom immediately after, crying and shaking, and spun a story about me being unstable and violent. According to Ava, Mom kept repeating, "I knew something was off, I knew it," like she'd been waiting to plug that phrase into any open socket. "Mom doesn't want to see you right now," Ava said carefully. "She says Sophie's safer at her house for a few days. She's protective of both of them." The word both turned my stomach. "You mean of her husband and my fiancé?" Ava didn't argue. She asked the obvious next question. "Do you have anything? Texts, photos, anything that shows they were doing this before you found them?" I shook my head, but then I remembered an image that wouldn't leave me alone. Greg's phone on the nightstand, unlocked, a thread of blue and gray bubbles with Sophie's contact photo at the top. I hadn't read it. I was too busy seeing red. But I'd seen the timestamp, that morning. "I didn't grab it," I said. "I just punched him and told them to tell me, or I would." We sat there, the milk-frothing machine screaming in the background. "They're going to make this about your punch," Ava said, doing that big sister thing where she organizes the mess into headings. "Greg's already told Mom you've got anger issues. He says he was trying to help you through pre-wedding stress. Sophie's telling Mom you've been distant and she leaned on Greg and it got confusing." The way Ava quoted confusing made my teeth grind. I asked if Mom would see me. Ava's mouth twisted. "She told me to tell you to get help first. That you need to take accountability for what? Exactly? Catching them? Breathing wrong?" I kept my voice level through sheer stubbornness. "I will not go grovel at Greg's kitchen island while he holds my grandmother's ring hostage." Ava nodded slowly. "Okay." Then we build a record. She slid a small notebook across the table. "Write down everything. Dates, times, who said what. If they're lying, the story will eventually contradict itself." She also told me to lock down my accounts, change passwords, call the jeweler who serviced the ring last year to flag it as potentially stolen if anyone tried to clean it. She was thinking 3 moves ahead, like always. On my way home, I started screenshotting. Sophie's calendars, the shared to-do list where dinner at Mom's had turned into staying at Mom's for a bit, the Venmo history where she'd sent Greg a random for $30 last week. I'd thought it was a joke about lunch. Now it felt like a breadcrumb. I checked the smart home app and saw a string of late-night entries and exits when I'd been on business trips. I tried ease get help first. Sophie is fragile. I stared at the words fragile until they blurred. The last time Sophie had been fragile, she'd cried because DoorDash forgot her extra ranch. I typed Mom again that evening and got her voicemail again. So I texted, "I will not discuss this through Greg. I am your son. I need you." She answered 1 minute later, which told me she'd been reading everything. "You scared me today. Greg says you're lashing out and you hurt him." Planned erased 15 replies before finally landing on, "Fragile people don't sleep with their fiancé's parent." She didn't respond. At 9:41 p.m., Greg texted me from a number I'd never saved under his name. "Just Greg, Mom." "Son," it started, and my vision went white at the stolen word. "I forgive you for losing control. I know wedding stress can be intense. Out of respect for your mother, let's agree not to drag this out. Give Sophie space. We can revisit after you've done some work on yourself." Beneath that, a second message. "P.S. The ring stays with family until you're in a better headspace. The gall of calling my grandmother's ring, not my family. I typed, "Return the ring within 24 hours or I'll file a police report for stolen property." He replied almost instantly, "Careful. Who do you think the police will believe? The man with anger issues who assaulted someone, or the women seeking shelter?" He used the plural like a shield. I didn't answer. I took screenshots and forwarded them to Ava. An hour later, I met my best friend Marcus on our building stoop. He showed up with 2 coffees and a look that said he expected me to fall apart. I didn't, exactly. I told him I felt like someone had climbed into my chest and rearranged the furniture. He listened. Then he said something I hadn't let myself think. "You know this isn't just cheating, right? It's a power move. Greg's wanted to be the center of your mother's universe forever. He found a way to humiliate you so completely that you'd be too ashamed to push back." Hearing it framed as strategy made something in me click. I wasn't crazy. It was diabolical because it was designed to make me react badly and look like the problem. Marcus also said, "Go see a therapist tomorrow. Not because you're broken, because you're in a hurricane and you need a rope. And also because if this goes legal, documented counseling looks good." He's right about optics. He's right about everything. By midnight, I'd done 3 practical things. Started an appointment intake for a therapist, scheduled a consult with a family lawyer Ava recommended, and backed up the entire photo library in case anyone tried to access or wipe the shared cloud. I also put Sophie's remaining clothes in boxes and labeled them for pickup. My apartment smelled like stale flowers and betrayal. I don't have proof of the affair that predates what I saw with my own eyes. Yet. But the pattern is forming. And if Mom won't listen, I'm going to make it impossible for anyone else not to. First comment. Keep documenting. If they're already spinning anger issues, you need time-stamped texts, calm emails, maybe a third party present for any handoffs. Also, get the ring flagged with local jewelers and your renter's insurance. Second comment. Your sister sounds like a lifeline. Lean on her and your friend. Therapy and a lawyer are smart moves. You didn't cause this by throwing a punch after that betrayal. Don't let them rewrite the story. Update 3. 2 weeks. That's how long it's been since the night everything imploded, and I feel like I've aged a decade. Sophie still hasn't come back for her stuff, though she's been parading around town wearing my grandmother's ring like she earned it. Mutual friends have sent me photos from social media. Her posting "New Beginnings" captions with Greg and Mom hovering nearby. It's like they're trying to shove this happy blended family narrative down everyone's throats while I'm left picking up shards. The worst part? People are buying it. Mom's side of the family, at least. My aunt texted me a Bible verse about forgiveness. My cousin unfollowed me. They're swallowing Greg's version wholesale. I'm the unstable son who can't handle stress, lashed out at his supportive stepdad, and drove my fiancé into someone else's arms. Meanwhile, I'm screaming into the void that I literally walked in and saw it happen. My sister Ava is still my rock. She came over last weekend with takeout and a whiteboard. Yes, a literal whiteboard. She sketched a timeline of events, texts, Venmo payments, the suspicious late-night entries from the smart home logs, Greg's smug messages. When you look at it all together, the pattern is undeniable. But Mom refuses to see it. She won't take my calls, and the only texts I get from her are veiled scolds about healing and choosing peace. Then came the kicker. 2 days ago, Sophie announced she was pregnant. She didn't tell me directly, of course. She announced it at Sunday dinner at Mom's house. A family friend who still talks to me spilled. The story being spread is that it's mine, and I'm a deadbeat already abandoning my future child. Ava says Mom looked relieved, like this tied up all the loose ends into Greg's story of me being a violent, unreliable fiancé. I didn't believe it at first, but then Sophie texted me out of the blue. "You don't get to run away from your responsibilities. You're the father I nearly dropped my phone." I knew what she was doing. They're trying to lock me in place, tie me down financially, force me to keep quiet. My reply was one sentence: DNA test or nothing. She left me on red. The smear campaign ramped up immediately after. Greg emailed me, yes, emailed, saying he's concerned about my fitness as a husband and father, and offering to mediate with Sophie if I commit to counseling and anger management. He CC'd my mother. The smugness in his words made me physically shake. He wants me humiliated, cornered, begging. Ava insists we stay calm and let the lawyer do his job. We're filing motions to protect myself from false paternity claims until there's proof. The lawyer also told me something chilling. If Greg is the father, they'll do everything in their power to bury it until after the baby is born, because once I've signed anything, marriage certificates, hospital forms, they'll have leverage. Meanwhile, my support system outside family has rallied. Marcus got me a referral to a therapist who specializes in family betrayal and abuse dynamics. Talking it through, she said, Greg's tactics are textbook DARVO: deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. I didn't even have to explain the acronyms. She nodded along like she'd heard the same story 100 times. That gave me some validation I desperately needed. Still, I feel isolated. The comments on Sophie's posts are filled with heart emojis and "you'll be such great parents." Mom's silence is louder than anything. It feels like she's chosen Greg's comfort and Sophie's lies over her own son. But I keep circling back to one thing: the ring. The jeweler called me yesterday. I'd flagged it weeks ago. Someone, Sophie, obviously, brought it in asking about resizing. The jeweler recognized the description and called me immediately. He refused service and logged her attempt. Now I have documented evidence she's walking around with stolen property. It's not the proof of the affair, but it's something tangible, something real. I sent the report to my lawyer, who grinned for the first time since this whole mess started. Paper trails matter, he said. This makes them sloppy. So here I am, vilified in my family's eyes, painted as an abuser by the two people who gutted my life, and now possibly being set up for paternity fraud. But for the first time since that night, I feel like I'm not crazy. Their story has cracks, and when it breaks, I'll be ready. First comment: they're trying to trap you financially. Stay firm on the DNA test. Do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything verbal. Let your lawyer handle every communication. Second comment: the jeweler's report is gold. Keep stacking evidence like that. They've overplayed their hand by parading around publicly. It'll make their lies easier to unravel in court. Update 4. It finally blew up. I was at work when Ava called, whispering urgently that Mom had summoned the whole family for a truth-telling dinner at her house. I almost didn't go. What's the point when they've already decided I'm the villain? But my lawyer said showing up calm and collected could matter later. So I went. Walking in, the atmosphere was thick with fake cheer. Sophie was already seated at the table, hand resting dramatically on her stomach. Greg standing behind her chair like some proud patriarch. Mom was fluttering around, clearly exhausted but still trying to make the whole thing look like a family event. Plates of roast chicken sat untouched because everyone was waiting for the show. Mom started with a speech about healing and choosing to move forward together. Then Sophie leaned in, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed, and said, "I'm carrying OP's child, and he's abandoning us." Gasps around the table. Greg shot me this smug side eye, daring me to argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just slid a folder onto the table. Inside, the jeweler's report about the ring, timestamps of Greg's late-night entries from the smart home logs, screenshots of Sophie texting me that I was the father, but refusing a DNA test. I said, "If you want to talk about truth, here's mine. Sophie is Greg's problem, not mine." Greg slammed his fist on the table. "This is harassment." Sophie burst into tears on cue, wailing that I was traumatizing her during pregnancy. Mom immediately rushed to her side, glaring at me. How can you be so cruel? She hissed. That's when Ava, bless her, spoke up. She looked directly at Mom and said, "Cruel is cheating on your stepson with his fiancée. Cruel is stealing Grandma's ring. Cruel is lying about who fathered a baby just to trap him." The room went silent. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Greg tried to recover, puffing up like he always does. "You're delusional. Everyone here knows OP has anger problems." But then, out of nowhere, my cousin, quiet as a mouse until that moment, spoke up. "I saw Sophie and Greg together months ago. At the bar. It wasn't subtle. You could have cut the tension with a knife." Sophie went pale. Greg's jaw locked. Mom froze. She didn't defend them this time. She just looked like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. The breaking point came when Ava slid a second folder across the table. She'd been digging deeper, and inside were financial records showing Greg had transferred thousands of dollars from Mom's joint account into Sophie's in the past 6 months. Money that Mom thought was going toward bills and house projects. Mom's hands shook as she flipped through the papers. "Greg?" she whispered. His face turned red, then purple. He stood up, pointed a finger at me, and shouted, "This is all your fault. You're tearing this family apart." Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall. Sophie followed, sobbing, "You'll pay for this." Dinner ended in chaos. Relatives scattered, some muttering apologies, some refusing to meet my eye. Ava and I helped Mom sit down because she looked like she might faint. For the first time, she didn't scold me or defend Greg. She just said, "I don't know what to believe anymore." That was enough for me. I told her gently, "You don't have to believe me right now. Just look at the evidence. Let the DNA test speak. And remember how much Grandma valued honesty." Then Ava and I left. Later that night, I got a text from Sophie. "You think you've won? Just wait. My baby will tie you to me forever." I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my lawyer. This war isn't over, but for once, Greg and Sophie aren't untouchable. Their lies are cracking in front of everyone. First comment. That was a masterclass in handling them. Quiet, factual, no yelling. Keep stacking evidence. Their panic shows they know their grip is slipping. Second comment. Your mom's denial is breaking down. It's hard for parents to admit they picked the wrong side, but you gave her space without screaming at her. That might be what finally shifts her. Update 5. The fallout hit fast and loud. Within a week, word spread through the family like wildfire. Greg and Sophie's story, that I was a violent, jealous ex who lost it and punched Greg because I couldn't handle Sophie moving on, was starting to collapse under the weight of all the receipts Ava and I had dropped at dinner. First came the DNA test order. My lawyer filed it, and Sophie, under pressure, had no choice but to comply. Greg showed up to the appointment with her, trying to look protective, but everyone in the waiting room could see the tension between them. She looked terrified. He looked furious. Second, Mom's bank called her about unusual withdrawals. Turns out Greg had drained more than just a few thousand. He'd quietly set up a credit line under her name and funneled even more cash into Sophie's account. When Mom confronted him, he called her hysterical and said she was letting me poison her against him. Classic Darvo. But the numbers don't lie. Third, the family group chat imploded. Half the relatives went silent. The other half started sending "thinking of you" messages to me privately. Sophie tried one last sympathy ploy, posting a black and white ultrasound picture on Facebook with the caption, "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns, but love conquers all." Comments were split, some gushing, others side-eyeing. One cousin outright asked, "Who's the father?" Sophie deleted the post within hours. Meanwhile, Mom's behavior shifted. At first, she was icy toward me, still stuck in the fog of denial. But once the financial betrayal sank in, she began thawing. She even texted me late one night. "I don't know how I let this happen. I should have protected you. It wasn't an apology, but it was closer than I'd ever gotten. The confrontation I'd been dreading finally came when Greg showed up at my apartment. He pounded on the door, yelling for me to come outside and be a man. I didn't answer. I just called the police and reported a disturbance. By the time they arrived, he was gone, but the incident was logged. My lawyer was pleased. Paper trails matter. Ava, ever the realist, reminded me not to celebrate too early. They're cornered. Cornered people do stupid things. She was right. 2 days later, Sophie's friend messaged me screenshots. Apparently, Sophie was trying to spin a new narrative that the baby wasn't Greg's OR mine, but some mysterious flings. A desperate attempt to muddy the waters before the DNA results came back. And then they did. Positive. 99.9% match to Greg. When I read the report, I felt sick and vindicated at the same time. Sick, because the betrayal was now carved in stone. Vindicated, because the truth I'd been screaming since day one could no longer be denied. I forwarded the results to Mom before she could hear it from anyone else. She didn't respond right away, but later sent one word. Devastated. The next family dinner is already being whispered about. Some want to clear the air. Others want nothing to do with it. Me? I'm done playing their circus games. I didn't create this mess, I just exposed it. First comment. There it is, the truth laid bare. Greg and Sophie can't spin their way out now. Stay calm, keep everything legal, and don't let them bait you into another punch. Second comment. Your mom may finally start to see who Greg really is. But brace yourself. People that deep in denial often cling to their abusers even tighter before they let go. Final update, 1 year later. It's been a year since the storm broke, and life looks nothing like I imagined when I was standing in my mom's kitchen, staring at Greg and Sophie in shock. The DNA results were the final nail. Greg couldn't deny the baby was his. Once it hit the wider family, there was no spinning left to do. Some relatives cut them off immediately. Others still mutter excuses about mistakes happen. But to most, Greg is poison now, and Sophie is the fool who hitched herself to him. Mom tried to hold it together at first. She insisted on staying with Greg for the baby's sake, even after the bank mess and the mounting debts. But the bills piled up, and so did the shame. When creditors started calling non-stop, she finally broke. She left Greg 6 months ago, filed for divorce, and has been renting a small place near me since. Our relationship is fragile, but at least it's there. She never fully apologized, but the way she shows up for me now, small acts, checking in, cooking dinner when I'm swamped, speaks louder than words. Greg? He skipped town. Rumor is he owes money all over the place. Some say he's working odd jobs under the table, others that he ran off with Sophie and the baby. Either way, he's a ghost in our lives. Sophie did have the baby. I won't lie, seeing photos pop up through mutual stung at first. It wasn't the child's fault. But I refused to let myself get dragged into their chaos anymore. They wanted a life together built on lies. They can live in it. As for me, things are better. I moved into a bigger place, got a promotion at work, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like my future is mine. Ava told me once, they thought they broke you, but all they did was show you who you don't need. I hold on to that. So, no, I don't miss Greg. I don't miss Sophie. And I don't miss the years I spent trying to earn scraps of approval from people who never deserved my trust. This past year proved something I wish I'd learned earlier. Sometimes family isn't blood. It's the people who choose to stand beside you, even when the world turns ugly. I lost a fiancé, a stepdad, and the illusion of a stable family. What I gained was truth, peace, and a life that's finally my own. Closure enough for me.